Now, partner, the first ride you think of when you think of spooky, haunted rides at Disney World or Disneyland, it's probably not Big Thunder Mountain. But I'm here to tell you, City Slicker, that you may just be plain dead wrong. Because those stories, those legends about what goes on deep in the bowels of Big Thunder Mountain may be more than what they seem, you varmint or something. And if you're not careful, you may just find yourself twisted up in a big heap of trouble, getting a bit more than you bargained for if you dig too deep. You rapscallion. No, they don't say that. Cowboys don't say that, do they? But I suppose since it came all this way, it's only fair if I tell you everything I know about the curse of Big Thunder Mountain, partner. Okay, they do say partner. I do know they say that. That's for sure. Now, honestly, you could ask anybody. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is a classic. Whether you're at Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Tokyo Disneyland, or Disneyland Paris, it's the runaway mine train roller coaster that puts all other runaway mine train roller coasters to shame. I love Big Thunder Mountain. And when Tony Baxter and his team of Imagineers were building and conceptualizing Big Thunder Mountain back in the late 70s, they didn't have to go as crazy with the story as they ended up going, but they did, and that is the Disney difference. It could have just been, similar to its predecessor, a fun tour through this frontier-themed environment, a tour through Big Thunder Mountain that would be really fast and really wacky and wild. But this mountain is not just a mountain, and this roller coaster isn't just a coaster. There is an entire mythos that has been added onto over the years ever since Big Thunder Mountain Railroad opened, and I am here to divulge to you the truth. Partner, Cowboys do say that, I know that for sure. Now, partner, before we talk about the ghosts that haunt Big Thunder Mountain to this day, we need to go back a little further to the Shoshone people who used to inhabit the area in and around Big Thunder Mountain. They called it Big Thunder Mountain because the waterfalls that would cascade from the peaks would sometimes sound like thunder in the middle of the day when there wasn't a cloud in the sky. That and the legend of the Thunderbird. And the Thunderbird will come back into the story later. Now, Disney did not come up with the Thunderbird. The Thunderbird is actually a real mythological creature from Native American mythology. I mean, for all we know, probably not a real creature, but a creature that exists in these actual native stories. It is said that the Thunderbird is able to create thunder by flapping its wings and lightning by flashing its eyes. And interestingly, the Menominee tribe of northern Wisconsin tell of, quote, a great mountain that floats in the western sky on which dwell the Thunderbirds. A great western mountain that floats in the sky that is the home to the Thunderbirds. Curious. Fast forward to the year 1849 and a young prospector named Henry Ravenswood travels out west to Big Thunder Mountain for unknown reasons and happened upon a little gold ore vein while working the mountain. Henry would strike it rich and establish the Big Thunder Mining Company and the mining town of Thunder Mesa to help support the mining company. Now, on the flip side of that coin, while Henry Ravenswood was living it up in the boomtown of Thunder Mesa, the local Shoshone tribe was forced off of their lands because of all this development that was going on. And I'm also sure Henry didn't take too kindly to the natives telling him to do not, under any circumstances, dig in that mountain. The Thunderbird lives there, man. We're trying to help you. He told him to buzz off. I mean, let's be real. He probably used other less savory methods to get them away from Big Thunder Mountain. But with the locals forcefully kicked out of town, there was nobody really to stop Henry from mining the mountain. Meanwhile, other boomtowns kept popping up all around the mountain. Rainbow Ridge, which we can find at Disneyland, Tumbleweed, which we can find at Walt Disney World, and Stillwater Junction, which we can find at Tokyo Disneyland. And last but not least, Grizzly Gulch, which is found in Hong Kong Disneyland. This signpost at Disneyland, while the distances are probably a bit off story-wise, confirms that all of these towns do exist around Big Thunder Mountain. We just happen to be accessing the mine train at different stops at different locations around the mountain while we're at different Disney parks. Now, as the years went by, these towns dotted around Big Thunder Mountain would establish connections and depots for the Big Thunder Mining Company. Henry, meanwhile, would marry, he'd have a daughter, and he would continue to dig deeper and deeper into the mountain until it seems one day his luck had finally run out and the spirit of the Thunderbird had quite frankly just had enough of him and decided to strike the entire area around Thunder Mesa with an earthquake. Said earthquake, funnily enough, though, only affected Thunder Mesa. The other boomtowns, Rainbow Ridge, Tumbleweed, were not affected and continued to mine the mountain. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you ask, Henry did end up losing his life in this earthquake alongside his wife Martha, and they were interred at the Boot Hill Cemetery on the grounds of Ravenswood Manor, the giant mansion that Henry had built up over the years, leaving their daughter Melanie the sole heir of the Big Thunder Mining Company. However, strangely, a few months later, around the time of her wedding, Melanie Ravenswood would mysteriously disappear. The butlers and the housekeepers from the mansion would leave, never to return, and legend says that Melanie still wanders the hall of the old Ravenswood Manor looking for her groom that never showed up to the altar. Now, if you follow the lore of different attractions around the Disney parks, this should be well known to you. There is, however, one thing that's never really explained in the storyline of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, and that's how the Big Thunder Mining Company passed from Henry Ravenswood, the original founder and owner, to Barnabas T. Bullion, the current, quote-unquote, current owner of the Big Thunder Mining Company when we ride the attraction at Disneyland and Disney World. But I think this is easily explained away, although Disney hasn't confirmed this in any way, so this is definitely a theory. When Henry passed away, obviously the mining company would pass down to Melanie. His whole fortune would pass down to Melanie, and when Melanie disappears, there's sort of a power vacuum. She doesn't die, nobody knows what happens to Melanie, and so in the ashes of the Big Thunder Mining Company, looking for a direction to head in while still mining Big Thunder Mountain. They're mining the mountain this entire time. Barnabas T. Bullion rises to power and claims the Big Thunder Mining Company for himself, and that's where we find the attraction when we board it at Disneyland and Magic Kingdom. However, it seemed that the Thunderbird wasn't quite done, and natural disasters kept plaguing the towns around Big Thunder Mountain, this time affecting Tumbleweed and Rainbow Ridge and Grizzly Gulch. Now the other towns weren't safe from the wrath of the Thunderbird, and people began to leave en masse. Barnabas, however, wouldn't budge and would continue to mine the mountain. The Big Thunder Mining Company would stay in business. As long as he was in charge, nothing would get in the way between him and his fortune. And so it seems that natural or unnatural disasters weren't enough to drive the miners away from the mountain. The Thunderbird decided it was time to get his hands dirty, and a series of strange, otherworldly, almost paranormal phenomena began to occur. The same paranormal activity that was originally reported over at the now abandoned Thunder Mesa and Ravenswood Manor began to spread. Rainbow Ridge specifically would become plagued by these ghostly apparitions, and every now and then a mine train would begin running around the mountain by itself. And nobody really knew why, so why not? They just kept digging. Next thing you know, more mine trains began running on their own. A flash flood would devastate the town of Tumbleweed, and nearly every little town that had sprung up around Big Thunder Mountain over the years had been reduced to a very low population. One might say a ghost town. In the case of Rainbow Ridge, literally a ghost town, although there are still people who live there. It gets a little confusing. And it's just now, right at this point, where people say to themselves, you know what? I'm starting to have a real bad feeling about this. I'm starting to think that... Did that train just go by without a conductor? Yeah, I'm starting to get the feeling that this place is haunted, and those people's feelings would be correct. Now everybody believed that the mountain was not only haunted, but also cursed by that Native American Thunderbird spirit, so even more people ended up leaving. And now Tumbleweed is just sunken, and then the Rainbow Ridge is up there on the ridge. I guess that's why they call it that. Thunder Mesa, though. Thunder Mesa was in bad shape. Bad shape. Now that every citizen in the town was leaving, and all of the miners didn't really feel like going down into the mines because of, all the angry spirits, the Big Thunder Mining Company began to suffer from a shortage of labor and supplies, and as a result, profits began to dip. And profits is one of Barnabas T. Bullion's favorite words that start with P, alongside please bring back Figment and Dreamfinder. And so Barnabas approached one of his old contemporaries, Jason Chandler, a member of the Society of Explorers and Adventurers. But not just any member, because around the time that the Big Thunder Mountain stories take place, Jason Chandler is actually the president of the Society of Explorers and Adventurers. He's the head honcho, and at some point even traveled to Big Thunder Mountain, as is evident from his luggage tag on the stagecoach on Big Thunder Trail at Disneyland. This stagecoach is a very important piece of environmental storytelling, not just for Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, but for the SEA story that Disney is building up within the parks. I was also curious if the cane or the hat in the stagecoach belonged to Barnabas or anybody that he knows, because Barnabas does does carry a cane, and he does also have a daughter named Abigail, at least in the Marvel Comics timeline. I'm gonna get to that in a second. However, Barnabas's cane is different. It has a gold nugget on the top as opposed to just the white topper that this one has. So if you were wondering if there was anything to the cane, I don't think so. Sorry. And it's at this point that the story of Big Thunder Mountain as we experience it in the parks more or less happens. We, as characters, show up to the mountain after everything has sort of settled. I mean, the mountain, don't get me wrong, is still just straight up angry, but the towns around the mountain are almost entirely deserted by this point, and the Big Thunder Mining Company is bleeding itself dry, trying to recapture those glory days back when Thunder Mesa was a boom town and Henry Ravenswood was in charge of the Big Thunder Mining Company, and business was doing just swell until he turned into the Phantom. That was a bad thing that happened to him. Everything's just sort of going on autopilot, both literally and figuratively speaking. Barnabas doesn't really leave his office for anything. The mine trains go round and round and into the mountain on their own, and nobody really does anything about it. And we, as guests, I guess, just board those mine trains to see the mountain. We haven't really gotten a story beat as to why we are visiting Big Thunder Mountain in the attraction. I'm sure that'll pop up at some point, maybe at this year's D23. For part of the Beyond Big Thunder Mountain, they'll announce that they're building a second Big Thunder Mountain behind the first Big Thunder Mountain that will explain the backstory more intricately, more detailed than I'm giving to you here, or that Disney gives to you in the park. Or they won't do that. Now, I mentioned earlier that there is an entire separate continuity for the Big Thunder Mountain storyline that's told in the Marvel Comics of the same name, Big Thunder Mountain. But I'm not necessarily going to include them in this version of the backstory because Disney likes to publish supplementary material for all of their rides. There's a bunch of Haunted Mansion stuff out there, like a bunch. Some Big Thunder Mountain stuff, some Journey into Imagination stuff, and it really comes down to the reader whether or not they want to view this as canon when you are standing in the parks in line or riding that attraction. Because what's most important to the canon and the storyline of the ride, in my eyes at least, is what you can experience when you're at the park. Not supplementary materials, not TV shows, not movies, not comics. What is part of the actual ride. So if you want to consider the comics and Abigail Bullion canon, you can, and you get more out of the ride for that. But if you don't consider them canon, you're not necessarily wrong there either. Are the Haunted Mansion comics canon? No, but also yes, in a way. How about the legends from the Haunted Mansion? Also no, but yeah, kind of. The Figment comics that give us a young Dreamfinder's backstory? Also, probably not, but you know, if you want them to be, sure. If you're wondering which camp I fall into, I am in the camp that everything that is in the parks, in the attraction, takes precedence over supplemental material like books and comics. I think the books and comics are great stories that can exist sort of within their own sort of universe of the Disney parks that don't really cross over with the main rides unless the Imagineers want to implement something from those comics or from those books into the rides themselves. Jason Chandler and Barnabas T. Bullion came from the parks first and then made their way into the comics. We don't see Abigail anywhere in the parks, anywhere. At least not to my knowledge. If she is in there, I have failed you. So before you comment that this is all explained in the Big Thunder Mountain comics, yes, but also kind of no. It's a weird sort of multiverse thing I think we're dealing with here. And honestly, I think Disney agrees with me on that sentiment. If they were to introduce a new scene or a new character to the mansion or to Big Thunder Mountain, and it directly goes against something that we see in the supplemental materials like Barnabas T. Bullion, never married, never loved anyone, never had a child, and the company dies with him. If that was implemented somehow into the ride, that obviously would take precedence over the comics. Does that make sense? It's usually a one-way street. The books can add story to the rides, but the rides never really take from the books to add to their own story. And what's neat is there are a couple more details that we can glean from this map of all of the shafts within Big Thunder Mountain that you can find in the interactive queue over at the Magic Kingdom. We can see what year the map was made right up here at the top, 1880, and we can also see below it what is to us the queue building for Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, but what is story-wise one of the depots for the Big Thunder Mining Company. We can see here that the Tumbleweed Tunnel leads into the Rainbow Caverns, which is interesting because the Walt Disney World version of Big Thunder Mountain does not have the Rainbow Caverns scene. It has a cavern scene, but there's no rainbows anywhere. Disneyland's has the Rainbow Caverns, so it's interesting that the tunnel that would lead to the Rainbow Caverns would be the Tumbleweed Tunnel. There might be another entrance that's not shown on this map that we take to arrive at the Rainbow Caverns in the Disneyland Disneyland ride, but I'm definitely overanalyzing this. But down below it, you also have the Batcave, which is its own separate room at the Magic Kingdom Big Thunder Mountain, so I'm extremely confused now. This is, however, a map from 1880. This does not tell us when we go aboard our haunted mine trains to ride the actual ride. We don't know when we arrive into the situation when we get on Big Thunder Mountain. At least I've done a lot of research and I cannot find a specific year where the ride takes place. There are dates as to when things are established and when things take place, but not to the actual year where we step aboard our mine trains. That's kind of weird. But I do happen to have a theory, because of course he does. This is Offhand Disney. That's what I do here on this channel, is I have theories. As you make your way through the Big Thunder Mountain queue, whether you're at Disneyland or Disney World, it doesn't matter. You can see artifacts that Disney Imagineers took from real ghost towns and real mining sites from states like Nevada, Wyoming, and where I am, Colorado. The real Wild West, where all the cowboys live. Puh. I don't know why I did that. And the condition of all of these pieces of mining equipment aren't exactly brand new. They don't look like they just came off the assembly line. They don't look like they're being used every day. My theory is this: we embark on our mine trains on the Big Thunder Mountain Railroad years and years after all of these events have taken place. After Henry Ravenswood passes away, after Barnabas T. Bullion has lost his entire business and fortune due to some prankish spirits, those darn prankish spirits. Something else that makes me think the known story events of Big Thunder Mountain happened numerous years in the past from our point of view is the narration we hear while we're on the Mark Twain riverboat at Disneyland.
We're now heading back into civilization along the Rio Grande. Off in the distance are the towering peaks of Big Thunder Mountain. Rumor has it that the railroad built to haul gold out of the mountain has been seized by supernatural forces, and they've turned the mining trains into the wildest ride in the wilderness. Of course, it may be just another legend of the river.
Now, I'm not sure about you, but I'm pretty sure legends take time to gather steam. Not making a pun about the Mark Twain riverboat here or anything, I'm just saying legends take some time to catch on. If this ride took place at about the same time when the mine trains first start getting possessed by the spirits, it would be more of a rumor, not so much a legend. So I think with it all being a legend of the haunted mountain, implies that the events of Henry Ravenswood and Thunder Mesa and Barnabas and Tumbleweed and Rainbow Ridge all happened in the past. That being said, I do not think it takes place in the current year, 2024 as you're watching this, or 2025 if you're watching this next year, or 2016 if you went on the ride in 2016. It does not take place then because the town of Rainbow Ridge is still occupied. And while Rainbow Ridge isn't quite what it used to be, there are still people living there, just a few, which implies that this is after all of the different natural disasters and Thunderbird schemes took place. Tumbleweed, on the other hand, because of the flooding, has become completely abandoned. Except for this guy. This guy, he's still there. Whose name, by the way, is Cumulus Isabar, and said that he could bring rain to Tumbleweed in the midst of a giant drought caused by the Thunderbird, and then the flash flood happened. So I guess he was a little too good at his job. Good job, Cumulus. The town's abandoned because of you. And just like all of the real artifacts that you can find outside of the queue at Walt Disney World, all of the mining equipment within the queue in the depot at Walt Disney World is also sort of rusted and disused, implying that a good amount of time has gone by since Barnabas's era, but people like Cumulus are still around in Tumbleweed, so it can't be that long, maybe 5 to 10 years, maybe a little longer. Grizzly Gulch, one of the surrounding towns, was founded in 1888, so it's at least after that. Now, most historians tend to say that the Wild West went from the 1860s to the 1910s, and if you were to ask my professional opinion as to when we as characters in the story of Big Thunder Mountain board these mine trains in the story, not in real life, I would say that in the 1910s, the mid-1910s, we're talking 1912 to 1916-ish, is a good estimate, which funnily enough makes it so that the Big Thunder Mountain storyline takes place after the Main Street USA storyline, because Main Street is the turn of the century, 1900 1900. Big Thunder Mountain would be about 10 years after that, so I just think that's a little silly. It's a little funny. Main Street USA is in the 1900s, and Big Thunder Mountain and Frontierland is in the 1910s. I just think that's a little funny. You're going forward in time. So I guess the moral of this video is congratulations, Tumbleweed. Congratulations, you stuck it out. You all made it. You survived the curse of Big Thunder Mountain. As long as you're not all mining the gold, I'm sure the Thunderbird has no problem, except for, you know, the original inhabitants who used to live on that land. But who cares, right? You know, Western expansion. But that is, for the most part, everything that's known about the lore behind Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. A simple roller coaster themed to a runaway mine train has such a deep and intricate and sometimes spooky story. I think you could only find that at the Disney parks. When I was a child riding Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, I always thought we were just going on the train around the mountain, and the train was very fast and a little bit out of control, and it was the wildest ride in the wilderness after all. But as more and more of this story comes to light, you can see that the history of Big Thunder Mountain is not just tragic in a way, weirdly, but also in a way a sort of cautionary tale about family and greed and vengeance if you count Phantom Manor in the story, which you should. All of that for a 3-minute long roller coaster. I think that is extremely impressive. Now, if only Space Mountain had the same level of deep and intricate lore behind it as Big Thunder Mountain. Oh? What's this? Howdy there, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching this video on the lore behind Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at Paris, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Florida, and Anaheim. I know I said cities there, and then I said Florida, so I guess that'd be Orlando and Anaheim. This video is a remake of like a 7-minute long video I made years and years ago back in 2017. I will put a card to that right up there in the corner of the video right now. I will also link it in the description if you want to watch that. Beware, it has very early offhand Disneyland energy, if you know what I'm talking about. So just be prepared for that when you enter this video. However, if you enjoyed this new and updated take on that old video, please be sure to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button if you're new around here and you want more story explained, lore behind videos. There are plenty of rides that I've covered in the past, like Haunted Mansion, obviously, and Space Mountain, but there are a couple that I haven't talked about really, like the Matterhorn has an entire backstory that I think would be interesting to go over someday, so please just let me know. A very big thank you to all of my supporters over at patreon.com/offhanddisney. They got early access to this video, and if you want early access to this video and, you know, a couple extra Patreon exclusive videos, even just $1 a month will get you access to most of the perks. Again, to all of you patrons watching this video right now early, thank you. Thank you so much. However, if you'd rather follow me for free, I am on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at offhanddisney. Makes it easier for everybody, but that, I do believe, is the end of this week's video, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing y'all down the dusty trail. I don't know why I did that again. Goodbye.